The cold rain hammered the flagstones outside the Lynch estate, and it hammered on Claire's ramrod straight back. She'd been kneeling out there for 3 hours, all to break off her engagement to me. Claire's parents had gone from initial fury to a pained reluctance. Now, they were just sitting in the living room, hashing out damage control with my own parents. I knew my moment had arrived. Everyone in our circle knows about the merger, the marriage. If we call it off now, don't we become a laughingstock? I began, my voice quiet but sharp enough to slice through the anxious atmosphere. Mrs. Lynch's face tightened with humiliation. What else can we do? Claire, she won't go through with it. We can't exactly drag her down the aisle. If Claire won't do it, I said, setting my fine china teacup down with a crisp clink, my gaze sliding nonchalantly toward her father, then we find someone who will. Surely she isn't the only unmarried woman in this generation of the Lynch family? Mr. Lynch's head snapped up. The eyes behind his glasses were sharp, pinning me. You're talking about Serena? Serena Lynch, the patriarch's late-in-life daughter. Technically Claire's aunt, but only a year older than us. Right now, she was on a piano tour in Europe, hailed by critics as a once-in-a-century talent. What very few people knew, however, was that this brilliant, radiant pianist was mute. If she weren't, there's no way old man Lynch, with his archaic, tyrannical worldview, would ever have allowed his daughter to parade herself on stage like a show pony. Hearing her name, I had to fight the smirk that threatened to split my face. I settled for a look of reluctant concession. Since you brought her up, Mr. Lynch, I suppose I can agree. We can't let both families be publicly humiliated. Before a single objection could be raised, I had my phone out, dialing my assistant, Alex. Leak it to the press. The Croft-Lynch engagement is on, but the bride is Serena Lynch. Yes, immediately. The commands were issued with such finality that both sets of parents were left speechless. By the time I stood to leave, practically pushing my own parents out the door, I hadn't left them an inch of room to argue. Stepping out of the grand entrance, the cold, damp air hit me. I glanced over at Claire, still kneeling dramatically in the downpour, and subtly flashed her an okay sign. A flicker of mischief lit up her eyes. Of course, this whole public spectacle, this primetime melodrama, it was all my idea. I was the one who taught her how to play the part. As the only child of this branch of the family, they weren't about to let her actually catch pneumonia and die for her art. When she first told me she was in love with someone else, I'll admit I was annoyed at being used as a placeholder. But I was more than happy to help her out, and in doing so, pave a little path for myself. Claire had slapped me on the shoulder, ecstatic, when I first laid out my brilliant plan. Julian, you're a genius. I didn't know you had so many terrible ideas. I'd brushed her hand off my suit. Just remember, I said coolly, from now on, you don't call me Julian. What do I call you? Uncle Julian. The look of petrified shock on her face was all the reward I needed as I stepped out into the rain. At our usual coffee shop in the Loop, my best friend Leo Vance listened to my new engagement news and nearly sprayed his Americano across the room. You're kidding me, Croft, he choked out, eyes wide. She's been hiding out in Europe for 2 years, and you're still not over her? Leo didn't have to remind me. I was painfully aware that Serena had been avoiding me for exactly 732 days. The memory of that summer hit me like a physical blow. The fireworks from our high school graduation party were still echoing in my ears when I'd cornered her, letting years of pent-up feelings pour out in one clumsy, desperate confession. And Serena, who had always been nothing but gentle and patient with me, rejected me. It was the first and only time she'd ever been so brutally direct. From that day on, she built a wall. Any party, any event, any gathering where I might be present, she'd decline. For 4 years of college, she was a butterfly, always flitting just beyond my reach. Until senior year. Fueled by too much whiskey after a party, I stormed into her apartment, backed her against a wall, and kissed her. My only thought, the only thing that mattered in that liquor-soaked moment, was that Serena's first kiss had to be mine. At first, I felt her give in, her hesitant response igniting a fire in me. Just as I thought I could push further, that I might finally have her, she flinched as if burned, shoving me out the door with all her strength. A few days later, she was gone. A scholarship at a conservatory in Vienna. No would-be. Not a single word. She just left me standing there like a fool. And your parents, they didn't kill you? Leo asked, gesturing gingerly toward my head. I gave a bitter laugh, tapping my forehead. See this? Almost had a whole new part in it last night. Leo leaned in, squinting. I don't see a scar. Who said there's a scar? I'm saying my old man almost took my head off with a crystal ashtray. Leo rolled his eyes and smacked me on the forehead. You deserved it. I winced, but my mind was clear. My parents' disapproval was nothing new. In their eyes, a woman who couldn't speak could never be an asset to me in the corporate world. But I wasn't a kid anymore. I didn't need anyone to prop me up. My marriage was my decision. Mine alone. Ding. The iMessage notification was jarring. On the screen, a name that had been dormant for over 700 days lit up. Serena, are you okay? 3 simple words. A stone dropped into a stagnant pool, sending ripples through my entire being. She must have only heard the gossip about my broken engagement. She didn't know the lead actress in this drama had already been recast. A sly thought took root. I didn't type a reply. Instead, I brought the phone closer, speaking in a deliberately low, dejected tone that I knew Leo could overhear. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Then, I swiped my thumb and sent a voice memo. Almost instantly, my phone began vibrating nonstop. Julian, what's wrong? Don't be sad. You're a wonderful person. It's not your fault. You deserve better. Are you still upset? Please just answer me. Message after message flooded in, each one carrying that distinct urgency of hers, a frantic concern I could feel even through the screen. A warmth I hadn't felt in years spread through my chest. For a second, I was a kid again, hiding in the garden of my grandmother's house. My parents had moved overseas to expand the business, taking my older sister with them, but leaving me behind. The crushing loneliness had me sobbing my heart out behind a rose bush. And then she was there, a tiny Serena, stumbling toward me, her small hands flying in a flurry of signed words, trying to comfort me. Her hands moved so fast, a frantic, sincere blur that made me laugh through my tears. She was the light that had pulled me out of that darkness. So now, I was going to be the light for her. Just when I thought the barrage of texts had stopped, the typing indicator bubbled for a long moment before a new message appeared. I know how much you like Claire. Why get back? I'll talk to her. Make her apologize to you. I stare at the phone. Who started that rumor? That was the most slanderous lie I'd ever heard. Still, I didn't reply. She ghosted me for 2 years. Fine. Let her see what it feels like to be ignored. A future wife, after all, needs a little training. I saw Serena again on the day of the first snow in Chicago. I was leaving the office tower after a late night, the wind biting and laced with fine, sharp flurries. I pulled my overcoat tighter and looked up. There was the familiar license plate of the car she used to drive me around in all through high school. The door opened and a tall, elegant figure emerged. At nearly 5'10", she stood out. A black wool coat hugged her slender frame, a matching turtleneck accentuating her long neck. Framed by the falling snow and the twilight glow of the city, she looked like a painting. 2 years, and she was more breathtaking than ever. The moment she saw me, she hurried forward. She must have finally heard the news about our new engagement. But in that instant, my brain went completely blank. All my plans, all my carefully rehearsed speeches evaporated. When she was just a few feet away, I closed the distance and pulled her into a fierce hug. The familiar, subtle scent of jasmine filled my senses, mixed with the chill of the snow. My eyes burned. I buried my face in the warmth of her neck, greedily inhaling the scent I'd missed so much, and mumbled, "It's freezing. I didn't know it was going to snow. I'm underdressed." A second later, a pair of cool hands tentatively wrapped around my waist, holding me with a gentle but firm pressure. Her palms moved in slow circles on my back, as if genuinely trying to warm me up. My heart hammered. A wicked thought took hold. My hand slid down her back, tracing the curve of her waist. Still perfect. Even better than I remembered. She must have been working out. Her body went rigid. I pulled back just enough to meet her questioning gaze, my own face a mask of innocence. This is warmer. Not satisfied, my fingers continued their exploration, tracing the line of her hip until a hand clamped down over mine, stopping me through the fabric of her coat. "What?" I said, feigning indignation. "You're my fiancée. Can't I inspect the goods ahead of schedule?" Serena's pale ears flushed a brilliant red. She shot me an exasperated glare, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me into a deserted fire escape. In the dim light, she let go of my hand. Her fingers flew, signing with sharp, angry movements. Julian, you can't marry me. I'm a mute. I'm not good enough for you. I don't want people looking down on you because of me. I knew these lines by heart. Hearing them again, all I felt was a pang of frustration and a deep ache for her. My eyes fell to her lips, pressed into a thin line. They were a pale pink, looking soft and inviting. Acting on instinct, I leaned down and kissed her. The touch was soft and cool, and it ignited every bit of my pent-up desire. Serena's eyes widened in shock. She was frozen, but she didn't push me away. A wave of pure joy washed over me. I deepened the kiss, leaving no room for retreat. I wasn't that reckless kid anymore. 10 years of waiting, of wanting, had taught me one thing. The only way to counter her retreat was with a more aggressive advance. You've been avoiding me, I murmured against her lips, my breath hot on her flushed skin. Why'd you stop? Her cheeks were so red they looked painted. She stubbornly turned her head away, looking for all the world like a helpless maiden being harassed by the town villain. I was overcome. I leaned in to capture her lips again, but she tilted her head back. Improvised, nibbing gänzlich her delicate teen. Ah! She gasped, her eyes flying wide with a mixture of shock and indignation. She looked like a startled fawn. She was embarrassed, but I was thrilled. That reunion ended with Serena fleeing the scene. For the next few days, she went back into ghost mode. Texts unanswered, calls ignored. This time, though, I wasn't worried. She had a few more dates left on her U.S. tour, and the primary sponsor was me. She wasn't going anywhere. In the dim, pulsing light of a West Loop bar, I watched Leo swirl the ice in his glass. He was known in our circle as a notorious womanizer. Leo, I said, taking a long pull of my bourbon, my voice edged with defeat. What the hell do I have to do to get through to her? After hearing my latest update, Leo let out a short, cynical laugh. From the sound of it, talking isn't going to work, he said, leaning in conspiratorially, a foxy grin on his face. You're going to have to sleep with her. Leo's plan was as simple as it was insane. I would pretend to get drugged at a bar, lure Serena in to rescue me, and then let nature take its course. I scowled at the sheer stupidity of it. Dude, you want to win? You have to play dirty. Leo slapped my back, exasperated. Stop being such a wuss. This is your shot. Don't blow it. The bourbon and a surge of desperation made a dangerous cocktail. I slammed my glass down. Fine, let's do it. But if this doesn't work, I paused, steeling myself. Then I'm really, truly done with her. Leo snorted. Please, you're only fooling yourself, Croft. Serena could look at you, and you'd hand over your soul. My face burned. I couldn't even argue. When Serena got the call and rushed over, I was artfully slumped on a velvet couch in a private booth, brow furrowed, my breathing shallow and labored. Leo played his part perfectly, whispering a frantic, abbreviated story in her ear about someone slipping something in my drink. Then, he made his escape. Look, Serena, I got a family emergency. I gotta go. Can you take care of him? Before Serena could even protest, he was gone. Through the haze of my drugged state, I felt a pair of cool, surprisingly strong hands lift me up, a soft body bracing me. On pure instinct, I hooked an arm around her neck, buried my hot face in the fragrant curve of her shoulder, and mumbled her name over and over. Serena, Serena. My other hand began a restless exploration of her back. Her body tensed, and she tried to pin my wandering hand. If I were sober, her strength and training would have made it easy for her to handle me. But as a helpless victim, she was at a disadvantage, forced to let me cling to her like a giant koala as she stumbled toward the exit. A few accidental grazes left her breathless and unsteady. I thought with a grim sense of satisfaction, am a terrible person. The moment we were in the back of her car, Serena hit a button, and a privacy divider slid up, shielding us from the driver. In the enclosed space, the air grew thick with our ragged breaths. I sagged against her like a man with no bones, feeling the frantic, hammering beat of her heart against my side. Serena, I whispered in her ear, my voice a broken, desperate rasp. I'm so hot. Help me. I didn't give her a second to think. I crushed my mouth to hers. This wasn't a gentle exploration. It was a forceful, desperate claim, my tongue parting her lips, conquering her mouth. At first, she resisted, but under my relentless assault, her faint struggles melted away. She began, clumsily, to kiss me back. Just as my lungs began to burn, I started to pull away, but a small, cool hand clamped onto the back of my head, holding me in place. It was as if some dam inside her had broken. Serena took over, kissing me back with a fierce, almost brutal intensity. This kiss was deeper, wilder, more desperate than anything I had initiated. It was a volcanic eruption of long-suppressed passion, devouring and demanding. My eyes flew open. For a split second, I honestly couldn't tell which one of us was supposed to be the one who'd been drugged. Before I could process it, her cool fingers were my shirt, undoing buttons with a speed that sent a shiver down my spine. Lost in the haze of passion, I thought I had won. "We're here, ma'am." The driver's discreet voice through the intercom was like a bucket of ice water. Serena shoved me away, so hard I almost got whiplash. Bang! My hand slammed against the hard edge of the doorframe. I bit back a cry of pain. In my head, I cursed the driver's impeccable timing. Serena was breathing heavily beside me, frantically trying to fix her disheveled blouse. After a moment, she seemed to compose herself. She smoothed down my own rumpled shirt, then helped a weak and unsteady me out of the car. I kept my eyes squeezed shut, leaning my full weight on her, terrified that if our eyes met, she'd see the clear-headed lucidity in mine. I felt myself being half-carried in her master bedroom, and I fought back a triumphant grin. Success! The next thing I knew, the world was spinning. Splash! Bone-chilling water engulfed me. I sputtered, sucking in a mouthful of cold water, my eyes flying open. I was in her enormous bathtub, and Serena was standing over me with the shower head, blasting me with an unforgiving stream of icy water. "Serena, are you insane?" I roared, all pretense gone. Seeing me awake and lucid, Serena's tense shoulders relaxed. She turned off the water, and her hands flew. "The doctor will be here any minute. Just hang on." "A doctor?" "No." I scrambled out of the tub, soaking wet, and grabbed her wrist. "You can't call a doctor." She stared at me, her expression a mixture of confusion and reproach. I wanted to find Leo and shove his terrible, moronic, romance novel-inspired plan right back down his throat. What kind of woman calls a doctor in this situation? Finally, under Serena's increasingly frigid gaze, I hung my head like a defeated dog and confessed everything. When I finished, her face was a stone mask. Her eyes were as cold as a Siberian winter. Without another glance, she turned, walked to her study, and slammed the door behind her with a resounding bang. The sound made my heart jump. I stood there like a scolded child. I could act like a cocky bastard around her all day, but the second she got genuinely angry, I didn't dare breathe. Her silent fury was just as terrifying as my sister's verbal assaults. Minutes ticked by. Nothing. I pressed my ear to the cold wood of the door, but heard only silence. "Serena?" I knocked gently, my voice softer than I intended. "Are you okay? Are you still mad?" Only silence answered. Just as I was starting to panic, wondering if I should break the door down, the housekeeper, Mr. Roberts, appeared. "Mr. Croft," he said with a kind smile, handing me a dry towel. "Ms. Lynch just messaged me. She asked me to show you to the guest room." I glanced worriedly at the closed door. "Mr. Roberts, is she—" "She's fine, sir," he said with a knowing nod. "Don't you worry." I followed him to the guest room. Serena had at least had the decency to have a change of clothes laid out for me. Lying in the unfamiliar bed, I tossed and turned, my mind racing with ways to apologize. A horrifying thought struck me. What if she just leaves again, like she did 2 years ago? I couldn't wait until morning. I slipped out of the room, tiptoed to her bedroom door, and tried the handle. Unlocked. My heart leaped. I slipped inside. The room was empty, but I could hear the shower running. I was about to back out when the bathroom door opened. Serena stepped out, wrapped in a white bath towel. Her wet hair clung to her pale shoulders, and droplets of water traced a path from her collarbone down into the tantalizing shadows below. My throat went dry. She, however, was perfectly composed. She calmly picked up a silk robe from a chair and put it on, covering everything up and completely ignoring the look of disappointment on my face. "Julian," she signed, her eyes cold. "How long are you going to keep playing these games with me?" I'm not playing games. I said desperately. Serena, I told you a long time ago. I'm in love with you. A self-deprecating smile touched her lips. What do you love about me? That I can't talk? Or that I'm moody and unstable and my first instinct is always to run away? Hearing her talk about herself that way felt like a fist clenching around my heart. A raw, acidic burn shot up my throat, and to my horror, my eyes filled with tears. I had never imagined that the woman I saw as a goddess saw herself as so deeply flawed. Seeing my tears, Serena faltered. She raised a hand as if to touch my face, then let it fall defeated. Julian, her fingers trembled slightly. What you feel for me is pity, not love. It's just like my parents. When I was little, they felt sorry for me, too. But then people started making fun of me. And they started to see her signing was calm, almost detached, which made it all the more brutal. I don't want that to happen with you. I couldn't bear it if you grew to resent me like they do. It's better if we just let each other go now. At least this way, you don't hate me yet. And when you find the person you're meant to be with, I'll be happy for you. I couldn't stand it. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight, my voice thick with emotion. I don't want your blessing. Serena, the person I'm meant to be with is you. She tried to push me away. But it's the reality of our situation. When people make fun of you, I can't even defend you. I can't even say the words, I love you, like a normal person. She signed this with a bitter smile that was more painful to see than any tears. At that moment, all I wanted was to be unreasonable. Who told you a mouth is only for talking? You have lips. You can kiss. You can do a lot of things. I cupped her face, forcing her to look at me. You seemed pretty good at kissing in the car earlier. Have you forgotten? At the mention of her loss of control, a deep blush stained her cheeks. I pressed my advantage, my thumb stroking her soft lower lip. You said you can't say you love me. Fine. From now on, when you want to say it, you kiss me. The more you love me, the deeper you kiss me. Everyone shows love differently, I said, my voice firm. We'll just find our own way. That's all that matters. Serena looked at me, and I saw the ice in her eyes begin to melt. She let out a barely audible sigh and gently pushed at my forehead. What have you been learning these last 2 years? All this nonsense. I grinned, feeling like the cat that got the cream. I've learned a lot. You'll find out eventually. Back then, after she'd pushed me away and fled the country, I convinced myself it was because my kissing technique was terrible. I'd even swallowed my pride and asked Leo for help. Without a word, he'd sent me a link to a cloud drive with dozens of gigabytes of educational material. My theoretical knowledge was now off the charts. I felt dangerously competent. That night, I shamelessly used the excuse of not being able to sleep in a strange bed to stay in Serena's room, curled up against her. Her faint jasmine scent was the best sleeping pill in the world. I woke in the middle of the night to find her side of the bed empty, though it was still warm. I got up and saw a sliver of light from under the study door. Figuring she wouldn't be back, I lay down again, a pang of disappointment in my chest. But a few minutes later, the mattress dipped. A warm body, carrying that familiar scent, carefully slid in behind me and wrapped an arm around my waist. My heart burst into bloom. I immediately rolled over and locked her in my arms. You know, I murmured against her ear, which was already turning pink. You wanted to sleep with me just as much as I wanted to sleep with you. You big fake. Her body stiffened for a second, but she didn't pull away. In the darkness, I felt the corners of her mouth curve into a smile. For the next few weeks, I stuck to Serena like glue. She was rehearsing for her tour, often not getting home until late. I'd wait for her on the couch, fighting sleep, and usually failing. Mr. Roberts told me in private that Ms. Lynch was smiling more than she had in years. She used to sleep at the rehearsal studio when she was busy, but now, no matter how late, she always came home. I knew the ice was melting. But then one day, she came home early and locked herself in the soundproofed music room, refusing to answer my knocks. A knot of dread formed in my stomach. I told myself to calm down, that maybe she just needed space. A short while later, I heard the familiar purr of a Rolls-Royce in the driveway. My sister, Victoria. Tori was leaning against the car, dressed in a sharp designer suit. When she saw me, she raised an eyebrow, her expression not angry, just resolute. You've been playing house long enough, little brother. It's time to come home. It had to be Serena. She'd called in the cavalry. She knew the only person in the world who could control me was my big sister. Sitting in the car, I kept looking back at the house. My sister scoffed. You really have it that bad for her? I nodded without hesitation. She went to her parents' house today, Tori said, her voice unreadable. The words were like an ice pick to the heart. I knew what that meant. Serena's parents saw her mutism as a stain on the family name. The things they said to her were 100 times more vicious than the words of any stranger. The fortress of confidence Serena had painstakingly built for herself had been reduced to rubble by her own family. The thought of her enduring their coldness and insults made my chest ache. Tori glanced at my reddening eyes, and for once, her voice softened. She reached over and ruffled my hair. If you love her, go get her. Don't be a coward. I've got your back. I whipped my head around, a flicker of hope igniting. Really? You're not like Mom and Dad. You're my brother. She cut me off, her tone laced with its usual protective authority. I'm in your corner. You do what you need to do. If the sky falls, I'll hold it up for you. She paused. Always. The sudden warmth made my eyes sting. I started to lean over to hug her, but she shoved me back by my forehead. I'm driving. Get off me. You're making it weird. Yep, that was the Tori I knew. The sentimentality had a 3-second shelf life. As I got out of the car, she stopped me. About when you were a kid, she started, her voice a little stiff. Don't blame Mom and Dad. They didn't leave you with Grandma because they didn't want you. They just didn't want you to have to struggle with us over there. I managed a real smile. I got over that a long time ago. Good, she said, her own face relaxing. Now, give me a few days. I've got a surprise for you. Guaranteed to take your relationship with that girl to the next level. I didn't have much faith in Tori's idea of a surprise, but I never, ever would have expected it to be this. I opened my bedroom door and was hit by the overwhelming stench of alcohol. And there, on my bed, tied up and passed out drunk, was Serena. I thought I was hallucinating. I backed out, took a deep breath, and went back in. She was still there. Not a hallucination. Her hands were tied behind her back. Her cheeks were flushed a deep, alluring pink from the alcohol. The top buttons of her normally pristine blouse were undone, revealing the elegant line of her collarbone. The sight sent a rush of blood straight to my head. My hand trembled as I dialed Tori's number. The background was loud. She was clearly still at a club. Tori, what did you do? Her voice was slurred but triumphant. Hey, it's a golden opportunity. Don't waste it. You'll thank me later. No, stumret. This isn't what I do, Tori. I might act like a scoundrel around her, but I had lines I wouldn't cross. Tori just cackled. Oh, please, stop pretending to be a saint. The package has been delivered. The rest is up to you. Fine. She hung up. I stared at the vulnerable, unconscious woman on my bed, my mind at war with itself. After a long moment, I crept closer. Serena? Serena? No response. Her breathing was deep and even. Taking a deep breath, I reached out with a trembling hand to untie the silk scarf binding her wrists. The moment her hands were free, her long eyelashes fluttered. She slowly opened her eyes. At first, they were hazy and unfocused. Then, they landed on my face, and the fog cleared, replaced by an expression of heart-stopping affection. She threw her newly freed arms around my neck and pulled me down onto the bed with shocking strength. Her hot cheek pressed against my chest as she clung to me like a drowning person to a piece of driftwood. I froze, instantly raising my hands in surrender. Serena, it wasn't me. I didn't do anything. I swear. It took a few seconds for my words to register. She loosened her grip slightly, but didn't let go, her eyes wide and wet like a lost fawn's. Serena, I whispered, my voice cracking. Do you know who I am? I pointed to myself. It's Julian. The name was like a trigger. Her arms tightened again, nearly choking me. She nuzzled her hot face against my neck, her soft lips brushing against my earlobe. Boom! An electric current shot through my entire body. I didn't move a muscle. That night, I was a statue pinned to my own bed, held captive by a drunken octopus, and I barely survived until dawn. The next morning, Serena woke up in my arms. Our eyes met. The air solidified. It wasn't me. I surrendered immediately, throwing Tori under the bus so fast it left skid marks. I swear on my life, I didn't do anything last night. I didn't touch you. Serena listened to my frantic explanation with unnerving calm. But when I got to the part about nothing happened, did I see a flicker of disappointment in her eyes? Then she just nodded, signed a simple, "It's okay," and went into the bathroom. I had no idea what to think, and I was too scared to ask. A few minutes later, the door opened. Serena emerged, wrapped in a towel, her hair dripping. She walked right up to me, pointed to the bathroom, then to the water on her skin, and signed, "Towel. A new one." I blinked. She could have just gestured from the doorway. Why walk all the way out here? Still, I scrambled to find a clean towel and handed it to her, my eyes darting everywhere, but at her, afraid she'd think I was trying to take advantage. She took the towel, but just stood there. Just as I was about to ask if the color was wrong, she slowly turned and walked back to the bathroom. As she walked away, I caught a glimpse of her ears. They were bright red. This woman, what was with her today? Did she and Tori drink so much they short-circuited her brain? Given Serena's ambiguous behavior that morning and for the next few days, I was too nervous to push things. I settled for sending her pictures of my day, my morning coffee, the city lights from my office window, a goofy dog I saw on the street, just to stay on her radar. Tonight was Old Man Lynch's 80th birthday party. As much as I hated it, I had to show up with my family. I had assumed Serena wouldn't be invited and was secretly relieved she'd be spared the ordeal. But the moment we stepped into the ballroom, I heard the venomous words coming from the main table. "It's for the best that mute girl didn't come. Her being here is an embarrassment. How did the Lynch family produce such a curse? She'll be the death of me." The old man's voice was loud, filled with undisguised disgust. I stopped dead, my vision going icy. Years of suppressed rage found an outlet. I walked straight to the head table, ignoring the shocked stares, and stood before him. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "Then why aren't you dead yet?" Silence. The old man's cloudy eyes bulged. He pointed a trembling finger at me. What did you say?" I curled my lip, my eyes like chips of ice. "They say only the good die young. So with your spirit, you'll probably live another 100 years. But maybe try to develop some human decency in that time, so you can stop making other people miserable." If you ask me, Serena was the unlucky one, being born a Lynch. Stuck with your defective genes. If she'd been born into any other family, she'd probably be living her best life right now. So, I leaned down, my gaze a weapon. If anyone owes anyone an apology, it's this family that owes her one. She doesn't owe you a damn thing, and you have no right to say a single word about her. The old man was shaking with fury. "Insolence! How dare you? Say that again." "I'll say it again." I straightened up, my voice rising. "You think this family got where it is because of your son? Go ask your international partners how many of them are doing business with you solely because of Serena's reputation as a world-class pianist. Her name carries more weight overseas than your entire corporation." From now on, I scanned the table, my cold glare landing on every shocked and guilty-looking Lynch. If I hear one more bad word about Serena, I won't be so polite. I was still seething. My eyes landed on the pristine white tablecloth, laden with extravagant food. I smirked and grabbed the edge of the cloth. Crash! The sound of shattering porcelain and gasps filled the room. Plates, glasses, lobster, everything went flying in a chaotic, messy heap. "Since all this fancy food can't shut your mouths," I said, dusting off my hands, my voice dripping with contempt, "then nobody eats." Ignoring the shouts behind me, I turned and strode out. My sister and parents seamlessly moved to block anyone from following. Outside, the cold air felt good. It was as if I'd finally expelled years of toxic fumes from my lungs. Just then, a familiar black car screeched to a halt at the curb. The door flew open, and Serena practically fell out. Her face was etched with a rare, frantic panic. She wasn't even wearing a coat, just a thin cashmere sweater. The moment she saw me, standing there in one piece, the tension in her shoulders visibly melted. Her presence extinguished the last of my anger, leaving only pure, unadulterated joy. I grinned and waved, taking the steps two at a time. "What are you doing here?" I asked, beaming as I reached her. Serena grabbed my shoulders and gave me a thorough, head-to-toe inspection, her eyes wide with fear. "I heard you got into a fight in there," she signed, her fingers trembling slightly. "I was worried you were hurt." My heart melted. I spun in a circle for her. See? I'm totally fine. Better than fine. I told off that old tyrant and flipped his table. It was awesome. Before I could finish, a soft body crashed into mine, bringing the chill of the night air and her unique, comforting scent. Serena hugged me with all her might, her arms wrapped so tightly around me it felt like she was trying to merge our bodies into one. I was stunned for a second, then a slow smile spread across my face. I wrapped my arms around her, patting her back gently, soothing her. Serena. I rested my chin on the crown of her head, my voice low and soft. Stop being a Lynch, okay? Her body went still. Be a Croft instead, I said, tightening my embrace. Be mine. I'll protect you. See? You don't have to defend me. When people insult you, I can insult them back. My mouth is big enough for the both of us. She didn't answer, but she held me even tighter, as if drawing strength from me. Snow had begun to fall again, dusting our hair and shoulders. But being held by her like this, I didn't feel the cold at all, only a steady, spreading warmth that came from deep inside my chest. Her answer? I could wait. We had time. As the end of the year approached, the company went into hyperdrive. Closing out projects, finalizing budgets, planning for the new year. I was drowning. I worked 5 days straight, practically sleeping at the office. My contact with Serena was limited to a few goodnight texts, which she initiated. The one time we had a video call, she saw the dark circles under my eyes and hesitantly signed, "You look exhausted. Do you want to move into my place for a while? My tour is over. I could drive you to work." I rejected the offer without thinking. No, it's fine. I have a ton of files at home. It's too much of a hassle to move everything. On the screen, I saw the light in her eyes dim for a second before she smoothed her expression. Okay, just get some rest. A few minutes later, exhaustion hit me like a tidal wave, and I fell asleep holding my phone. The next time I saw her in person was completely unexpected, outside the private room of a coffee shop where I was meeting a major client. I just pushed through the heavy glass doors when I saw her. She was sitting alone at a prominent window table, a nearly untouched coffee in front of her. The pale winter sun illuminated her profile, making her look impossibly beautiful and remote. She seemed lost in thought, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. A jolt of joy cut through my fatigue. Serena? What are you doing here? She turned, a small, fleeting smile touching her lips when she saw me. Before she could sign anything, I rushed to explain, afraid she'd think I was stalking her again. I swear I wasn't following you. I'm here for a meeting. When she didn't look convinced, I added, I've been so slammed I haven't had a second to think, let alone track your movements. The words were barely out of my mouth when I saw her fingers tighten around her cup, her knuckles turning white. Just then, the door to the private room opened. Julian, Mr. Lee is here. Coming. I called back, then turned to Serena. I've got to go. I'll call you later. I didn't even wait for a response before turning and following my colleague. As I walked away, I heard a sharp crack and a waitress's gasp. Mom, your cup. But my mind was already on the negotiation ahead. I didn't break my stride. Hours later, the deal was done. As I left the room, the sky outside was dark. I glanced at the table where Serena had been sitting. It was empty. I sent her a text. Meeting's over. When did you leave? What are you up to? Crickets. Back home. After a long shower, the unanswered text made me feel uneasy. I tried a video call. It rang twice, then disconnected. The screen was stark. Call declined. My stomach dropped. She saw my message. She was deliberately ignoring me. But I've been working nonstop. I hadn't said a single harsh word to her. What could I have possibly done? I ran a hand through my hair in frustration and called Leo. After listening to my breakdown of the case, Leo rolled his eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. Croft, your romantic IQ is a roller coaster. Isn't it obvious? She's pissed because you're ignoring her. No way, I shot back. You don't know what she used to be like. She avoided me like the plague. Key words. Used to be. Leo cut me off, looking at me like I was the dumbest man alive. People change. Look, I don't know what happened between you two, but trust me, I know women. Go over there in a couple of days, apologize, and I guarantee she'll be putty in your hands. I was skeptical of Leo's advice, but I decided that as soon as the fiscal year was officially closed, I would go to her and beg for forgiveness. I just didn't expect to run into Claire Lynch first. I'd finally finished the last day of work for the year, feeling completely drained. The moment I stepped out of the building, the frigid wind cleared my head a little. And then I saw her, arguing with some guy on the sidewalk. She was crying as he yanked his arm away and stormed off. I immediately tried to pretend I hadn't seen them and walk away. Too late. Our eyes met. Awkward. "Julian?" Claire called out, her voice thick with tears. Half an hour later, I was in a 24-hour diner, listening to Claire sob her story. I fell asleep during the movie. "I only made him wait 4 hours at the theater," she wailed. "Is that really a reason to get so mad? It isn't, right?" I took a long sip of my ice-cold Coke. "No, you're right. You shouldn't have gotten mad." Claire's eyes lit up. "If it were me," I added conversationally, "I just would have slapped you twice. Much more efficient." Claire stared at me, speechless. "So what do I do now?" she sniffled, looking at me with pleading eyes. "How do I get him to forgive me?" "Don't ask me," I said, holding up my hands. "I'm not getting involved." Claire immediately switched to whining. "Julian, come on, help me. You're the one with all the crazy ideas. You helped me with the engagement thing. You have to have a plan. Please, Uncle Julian." That last part, drawn out and wheedling, tickled something deep inside me. I fought to keep my expression serious. "Uncle Julian," she sang, seeing my resolve weaken. I cleared my throat, trying to sound stern. "Fine, but just this once. The happiness of the younger generation is something I, as an elder, take very seriously." I told her that, short of a major screw-up, most boyfriends were powerless against a surprise kissing offensive. Grab him, ignore whatever he's saying, and just kiss him. Kiss him until his brain short-circuits. He'll forget why he was mad. Claire looked utterly lost. "How do I grab him? How do I kiss him?" I sighed, looking at her hopeless face, and stood up. I reached across the table and put my hands on her shoulders. "Like this, you grab him." I was just about to demonstrate the first part of the maneuver, my hands barely even touching her coat. The diner's glass doors swung open, letting in a blast of cold air. I looked up, and there was Serena. She was wearing a cream-colored coat, a scarf draped loosely around her neck, and holding a small paper bag. Her gaze landed squarely on my hands, which were still on Claire's shoulders. Time stopped. Every ounce of expression drained from Serena's face, leaving behind an Arctic chill. Her eyes looked like they were covered in a layer of frost, sharp enough to pin me to the wall. Without a moment's hesitation, she turned and walked back out into the night. "Oh, hell," I muttered, snatching my hands back like I'd been burned. "Claire, you're going to get me killed." Ignoring Claire's confused expression, I bolted after her. The night air was a knife against my face. Thank God she hadn't left. The familiar black car was idling at the curb, the back door slightly ajar, waiting. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pulled the door open and slid inside. The atmosphere in the car was thick enough to choke on. Serena sat on the far side, her face turned to the window, giving me nothing but a cold, rigid profile. The driver, sensing the tension, quietly put the car in gear. The ride was silent. I tentatively reached for her hand, which was resting on her lap. Before my fingers could even brush against hers, she snatched it away, clenching it into a tight fist. My stomach sank. Was Leo, the idiot, actually right for once? The car pulled into her driveway and stopped. Serena got out first, striding toward the house without a backward glance. I followed like a man on his way to the gallows. The heavy front door clicked shut behind us. Just as I was trying to figure out what to say, Serena stopped dead in her tracks and spun around. An unstoppable force slammed me back against the cold, hard door. And then her mouth was on mine. The kiss was a storm, filled with all the anger and hurt she'd been holding back, a desperate, wild claiming. Her tongue forced its way past my lips, possessive and punishing, her teeth nipping at my lip. After the initial shock, a bolt of pure, unadulterated ecstasy shot through me. I kissed her back without a second thought, my arms locking around her waist, pulling her flush against me. Our mouths and tongues battled, our breaths mingling, as if we were trying to consume each other whole. Feeling my passionate response, the punishing edge of her kiss softened, becoming a deep, drowning exploration. I don't know how long we stood there. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless, foreheads pressed together. Her eyes were hazy with desire, her chest heaving. I lifted a hand and gently brushed my thumb over her swollen lips, my voice a low, rough rasp. Not mad anymore. I cupped her face. I was just showing Claire how to make up with her boyfriend. That's all it was. Serena, there's no one else. It's only you. Her eyes, glistening, stared into mine. Her lips parted as if to speak, but she just let out a shaky breath. Her fingers came up to trace my mouth. I took her hand and pressed it against my chest. Are you my girlfriend? Because if not, no more kissing. A ripple of emotion crossed her face. And then, she smiled, a real smile that chased away all the shadows. She nodded emphatically, then took my hand and pressed it against her own heart, which was hammering just as hard as mine. Then she kissed me again. This time, there was nothing to stop us. And I finally, truly understood that a pianist's hands could create more than just music. They could play a symphony on a lover's body that would make you lose your mind. We were official. The price of being official was that my lips were perpetually chapped. It was like she was trying to make up for years of lost time. Kisses were her primary form of communication, and she took my "kiss me to tell me you love me" advice to heart. During the holidays, I took her home to meet my family. My dad started out with a scowl, but between my mom and my sister, he was a convert by the end of dinner. "Julian," he said, clapping me on the shoulder, "you be good to Serena, you hear me? Don't you give her any trouble." The whiplash from his turnaround was intense. The Lynches sent an invitation, which we both ignored. Some things can't be fixed. It was better to just leave the past where it was. Right after the new year, Serena had to fly back to Europe to finish out some prior work commitments. It looked like we were going to spend Valentine's Day apart. On the day itself, Leo dragged me to a club he'd booked out for a Singles Awareness Day party. I curled up on a couch in the corner, nursing a cranberry juice while everyone else went wild. My phone buzzed. A text from Serena. "Just landed. You said both uplights." Another text followed. "Send me the address." I was so stunned I could barely type the location. A few minutes later, she appeared in the doorway. I stood up to meet her, but a woman in a tight dress and too much makeup stepped in front of me. "Mr. Croft, fancy seeing you here," she purred. I frowned, trying to place her. "It's me," she said brightly, her voice loud enough to draw stares. "From 2 years ago, when you had us all line up for that video. I was one of them." A mortifying memory I had successfully repressed came flooding back. I saw the smile vanish from Serena's face, her eyes turning to ice. I needed to get her out of there now. The woman was still talking. "I can't believe you don't remember, but I guess it has been a while. It was the easiest money I ever made. If you ever have a job like that again, you have to call me." She puffed out her chest. "I've been working out. The merchandise has only improved. You can even check for yourself." I could feel the temperature dropping behind me as Serena's glare intensified. "That's great." I cut her off. "Good seeing you. We have to go." I practically threw my arm around Serena and steered her toward the exit. "Call me Mr. Croft," the woman yelled after us. In the car, the silence was suffocating. "Serena," I started, my voice strained. "That was a long time ago." Before I could finish, the car stopped at her house. Serena yanked me out of the car and all but dragged me inside. We didn't even make it past the foyer. She slammed me against the wall, her mouth crashing down on mine in a furious, punishing kiss. It was a kiss full of jealousy, possession, and a sliver of insecurity, so intense it left me breathless. We never made it to the bedroom. We ended up on the living room sofa, lost in a tangle of limbs and desperation. My only coherent thought was to be grateful that Mr. Roberts was still on vacation. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. The first thing I felt was something on my left hand. A platinum ring, intricately designed, was settled firmly on my ring finger. A single, brilliant diamond was set in the center, elegant and understated. I sat up. Serena was lying on her side, watching me, her eyes soft, but with a hint of nervousness I'd never seen before. She took my hand, her fingers tracing the ring. Then, she slowly began to sign. "This is why I was gone for so long. Besides work, I designed it." "Julian," her gaze was incredibly intense, pleading. "I want to marry you. Don't be with anyone else. Whatever you want to see, I can do it for you. All of it." Looking at the familiar, unique cut of the diamond, at the vulnerability in her eyes, the way she made herself so small for me, my heart broke for her. I pulled her into a fierce hug, my lips at her ear as I made a promise. Okay, no one else. Only you. It was always you. It is now, and it will be forever.